Hi, this is Lyndon Jones for Theatre Now. I'm with James Bellion and Roger Vickery, who are the co-writers of a new play, A Nest of Skunks, which is going on at the Depot Theatre from August 3. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
What is this Nest of Skunks, and how's the play set up?
Originally, Roger's original story was actually from the viewpoint of the person who was giving sanctuary to the refugees or asylum seekers. And it was such a strong story that, the moment I read it, I thought, this has got to be turned into a play. And then Roger, of course, goes, do you think this could be made into a play? And I went, yes, thank you for asking. So we ended up having this sort of a lovely little sort of serendipitous thing that was happening with the faith in the story. And, we just had faith in the story, and we were on the same wavelength. So basically, my job became to take the story as it was, like what the story was about, and create a drama around it. Actually create a sort of a structure to tell the story not from a first person point of view, but from a third person narrative as a play would be, if unless it's a monologue. So that was sort of the first pass through that, which is what I did, and then sort of handed it over to Roger, and then it was like toing and froing. And so the story, how would you describe the storyline?
A family on the run, and the people trying to keep them safe in a world where no one can really trust anyone else.
I think people's expectations about stories to do with refugee advocacy and that sort of thing, we're going to be very didactic and so on. We're not lecturing anyone. This is actually a thriller. It's a thriller about people in trouble. It's just that they happen to be from a particular sort of background, and that background is going to create all sorts of problems for them.
That when people leave the play, they will be talking and saying, is that what happened? There will be a complexity in the final scene that we think will keep resonating, and I know we think it will happen. But I know when I stop waking up at 2 a.m. and worrying if we're really, how good is it, because you always do, was that one of our lead actors has relocated from Singapore, leaving her children behind for the sake of doing this play. She felt so committed to it, and that's what we've heard from the first reading. People have said, this is a very different play, I want to be in it. So that, again, makes you feel you're on the right track.
I'm an Armenian from Baghdad. I came here in 1969 as a 13-year-old with my family. Now, we weren't on boats or anything like that. We actually flew in. And on the face of it, we could look like, we did very well. And we did, we were lucky. What's behind that is all the fear that drove my family over a time of 6 years to actually slowly get out of the country. And every time you got out, you had to leave something behind. You couldn't just pack up your wealth and go, because there were limits on money you could take and all of that. So people were always making some very, very difficult choices. And I actually remember my father saying in the car one night, about a couple of months before we left, he said, well, when we get there, you just roll up your sleeves and you just do what it takes. And that was his attitude. And that was actually my mum's attitude, but he sort of voiced it. And I think some of the talk that goes on about, refugees, queue jumpers and all of that sort of stuff, you only talk like that when you talk about the subject as an abstract subject. When you actually know people, when you know individuals,
It comes home.
It comes home. I mean, I went to Villawood Detention Centre a few years back, and there was a woman from Iraq and her young son. Her husband had been killed under the old days. And she was here under a temporary protection visa, which is, for all intents and purposes, it's great. But when I was speaking to her, I went there with a lawyer as part of research for something else I was doing, and she just had this fear that what if they send her back because it's a temporary protection visa. Unless you understand that fear, it's abstract.
How old were you, James, when you left?
13.
You were 13,
Yeah.
and the family had to pretend to be going on a holiday, so everything was left in the house,
Yep.
and the neighbours were going to come in and take it away. But you realised in the car, in the taxi, you'd forgotten something.
Ah, yes. That actually makes me emotional. I had done my first year high school in Baghdad, and it was one of those high schools that had yearbooks, and so I had this red leather-bound not leather, but it looked like, yearbook. It was about that thick, and it was sitting on the mantelpiece. It was the last thing that we were going to just grab and go, and we were in such a rush to get out because we had to sort of get to the airport in a particular time for it.
I grew up in Albury, which was near Bonagilla migrant camp, the biggest migrant camp Australia's had, and so we were very affected by the stories of displaced people mainly from Europe, and the stories I heard and the damage I saw to the parents really made an impression on me, and it struck me, what if? And that's been a theme, a question that's never really left me. So this is one of a few stories I've written on this theme, but to have it come to life as a play just gives so much more excitement to it. It lends itself to drama. I've collaborated before. James hasn't, as far as I know. So
Not in that way, no.
Yeah, I said to him, look, I said, first of all, in my experience with collaboration, there has to be a lead dog, and you're the playwright, you've got the track record, so you have the loudest bark. And the second one was that when I've worked with other people, I have a phrase, I'm really only interested in cage fighter love. Cage fighter love means tell me what's wrong with it, don't schmooze me, let's save time and get to what's bad. And I found if you're confident about your work, that's a very good way. And it's been a very harmonious relationship. It's not over yet, we could still have some dust-ups, but so far so good.
It was the quickest I've written a play, and I had a conversation with Roger a couple of weeks ago. I said, I've got another idea now, do you want to collaborate with me? One of the things that we're doing is donating $5 of every ticket sold to the 2 Wednesday performances and the Sunday performance, the Sunday matinee performance, to the Asylum Seeker Centre. It's what we want to do, and the whole cast is on board. I mean, it's a co-op production, so it's not I'm the producer and I've made that decision. I actually ran it past everyone before we went ahead with it, and everyone was just 100% on board.
Have you got somebody that you consider a mentor or an inspiration?
As far as storytelling goes, my grandfather, and I mean that without being cute. He died at the age of 102, and he was like, and I was 21 when he died, 22 actually when he died, and so I spent quite a lot of years with him where he just kept telling me these stories. He was just this most amazing natural storyteller, and so I don't see the world in any other way but stories, thanks to Grandpa.
If there was any play or novel that have ever been written, which is the one that you wish you'd written?
It's always a hard question, and it depends on what's happening now, but there's only one book that I've gone back to, I think, 7 times now, and that's Oliver Sacks, The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, because in the end that psychological mystery is the one that absolutely fascinates me, and Sacks was taking real people and investing them, explaining them in such a creative way. So yeah, I'd say Oliver Sacks today.
The Great Gatsby. I read that when I was in high school, and I actually remember falling in love with it. To the extent where the middle names of both my sons are just the letter J. After Jay Gatsby. Play The Crucible.
Yeah.
Over and over again. I just, every time I see it, or every time, I've read it several times, and I've seen it a few times. I just never tire of it. It's just so good. And it can apply today.
I think The Great Gatsby has a fantastic last 2 pages, but does not deserve its reputation as you see fit.
Okay.
And this is an example of cage fighter love.
There you go.
What a perfect way to end the interview. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, that was fun.